Earth is given into the hand of the wicked, who do the lust of their father the devil, so that the Gentiles shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies. Let's discuss. Hello and welcome. My name is Renaya, and as you can tell right now, I am doing a little bit different today. I am starting a new series. It is called Total Recall, Demolishing the Matrix. And in order to do that, we must venture into other books, other records, and I wanted to first show something about the Bible itself and what it has to say on this particular subject matter. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so the first thing is I want us to be able to seek to absorb the various scriptures. Job chapter 9:24, John 8:44, and Jeremiah 16:19. And I'll let you do it at your own discretion, but for time's sake, I'm going to go forth. Okay, the next thing is we need to answer these questions, and these are going to be the questions that drive this particular discussion. The first one being, does the Bible foretell of its own tampering? And two, if so, why? If the Most High is in control of everything, why would he allow his record to be tampered with? For what purpose? What means? Okay, so kicking this off, we start with question 1. Into whose hands has the earth been given into? And for this, we look at two scriptures primarily, namely Job 9:24, which says that the wicked are the ones who the world has been handed over to. But you may look at wicked, okay, that's a general term. But when you actually look at the verse itself, it talks about those who are judges. So we come away from this verse knowing that the wicked are those who have power governmentally, those who make judicial laws, and so forth. Those are the ones who are ruling that are called wicked in this case. Going on to the next verse, we look at James chapter 2, verse 6 through 7. Further illuminating who the wicked are. And it talks about the rich, those who persecute, and we may be trying to impress them, but they're busy looking down upon us. And this is another group that when joined together, you have those who are making the laws and those who have made a buttload of money because of how they have treated the masses in general. Question 2. What does the devil and thus his children lust to do? So in John chapter 8:44, we have the Messiah talking to the Pharisees or perhaps the Sadducees, but it's people who are older than him. But in this particular verse, you see that the Messiah is going toe to toe with these men. And he's telling them pretty much that you're following your father. And their father was about breaking two primary commandments. Commandment 6 and Commandment 9, which are thou shalt not murder or kill in some rendition. And then number 9, which is bearing false witness against your brother, or aka lying. So you have this right here. You have those who are wicked that are breaking the law of the Most High. You have them being rich. You have them being the ones judging. And add to this pathological liars along with the willingness to kill. And then you have a recipe for disaster. Going on to question 3. What will Gentiles declare in the end? And this is where we turn to Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19. And here you see it says that Gentiles from all over will come together and say that they have inherited lies, vanity, and things that are of no use. And as this world continues to slide down this pathway with this current epidemic, so to speak, going around, and everything staying out of sorts, and everything being far from going back in 1 or 2 weeks, and now months have extended. Now we're seeing that people are going into panic mode, like what's going on, and actually having the time to consider what's going down in their lives. So this is the next thing. The Gentiles are going to start looking like what is really going on here. Going on to the next question, I can see people just pretty much saying, what? That's in the Old Testament. Isn't that really something that was futuristic then? And now we have passed that? With that, I say let's look at Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. And in this particular verse, we have Satan who's cast out of heaven. and it talks about him going and deceiving the whole world. And also going on to verse 12, it talks about woe to all the inhabitants because Satan knows that his time is short. Now, talking about what we were talking about just previously, just being something futuristic that's already been resolved. The Dark Ages are done, and that was long ago. But the Bible is clear right here, where it's saying from the time of John, 90, 80s, you have the time is short, just the whole period. So when we talk about deception, no, it has yet to end. It will end when the Messiah returns and the time of the Gentile is completely over. That's when the inheritance of lies will cease because he will obey his Father and keep his commandments. Question 5. So what have men done to the writings of the Hebrews, to the Israelites, records? So we look at Revelation 22:18, and we're going to prove that Most High already knew that men were going to be doing tinkering. The first thing is, Most High talks about adding things to his word. And what does this look like? Well, it's pretty much the traditions of men, things that are nowhere in the text, but because it's said so much like commercial, people actually believe that is in there. One of the things that immediately pops off the top of your head, Sunday worship. Okay, where did that come from? Nowhere in the Bible. Sabbath's always been in effect. Most High never changes, but people still go with it heavily. So that's one thing, just something added. People add it. They have no idea. It's just that my parents did it, my grandparents did it, my great-grandparents did it. I'm going to do the same. The next thing that can happen is mentioned in Revelation 22:19, the next verse, where things are taken away. So how has this happened? Well, when the Romans start saying that things are non-canonical, you've probably heard that terminology. Oh, that doesn't matter. We are unsure what time frame that came, knowing good and well that Hebrew records were copied precisely. Older records were gotten rid of so that no one would go and do anything sinful with it from all that I've studied. So what does that include? Like, give you an example, the book of Enoch. People dismiss it, even though you look in Jude, and it's a clear mentioning of Enoch, the seventh from Adam. It's nowhere that is mentioned in the Older Testament. But people, when they see the actual book that says this, they will still dismiss it as though it's non-canonical. That's error. Next thing, what I want to get into eventually is something called a book of remembrance. Most people have probably never heard of it, but it's something else that needs to be addressed, something that has been taken away that would bring great clarity if it was actually introduced to the masses, to the people at large. Number 6, does the Bible affirm that changes would occur? Part 1. And for that, we turn to Daniel. And Daniel chapter 12, verse 4 tells us that knowledge would increase at the end. And when you know that this right here, what we're in, is called the information age because the computer, because the internet, anyone can access pretty much any piece of information at their fingertips, just like that. And it matches perfectly what scripture said. So in order for knowledge to increase means that there had to be a lack of knowledge. And certainly with this criteria of explosion of information, knowledge increasing, when this has yet to be the case in prior generation, this is the most fitting. So again, no one will dispute just the power that the personal PC has brought as far as information. And if you trust what is said right here, then you could see it clear as day that no, there's other stuff that needs to be said that the Most High in verse 9 says would be sealed. And that's the irony of it. The Most High had Daniel seal portions of it and put it away for mankind's good. You see, the Most High put it away because he knew that if all the records were ascertained, then those who were wicked would have destroyed those. So you have records that have been hidden away. You have those that have been buried, that have been uncovered at future generations. Those who are curious about the past, uncovering it, whose intention would never be just to immediately destroy what they just found. So you have the unsealing of records. You have the Dead Sea Scrolls and other records that have been buried for generations. But when you have bought into the canonical version of the Bible, thinking that I have all the writings when there's plenty of other writing, then you're more likely to fall into one of the traps that those who are rich, those who are in positions of judging, have set up for everyone to entrap them into Satan's scenario, into his trap. All right, 7. Does the Bible affirm that changes would occur? Part 2. So this time we're going to look more so at Most High side. Sure, talking about Daniel, what he did, but now more personal. When we look at this, Proverbs 25:2, it says, "Who conceals and who searches?" That's the question here. And clearly the verse says that the Most High, He's the one who conceals a matter. And it is up to kings, nobility, those who want to develop their character, to search out to see whether something is true. So, sure, I could be given tons of information. I could be given tons of records, and I could be told they're non-canonical. Well, as someone who's seeking nobility, should fear be the first thing? No. Rather, me searching and seeing, and then using the guidelines, like the Bible said, having 2 or 3 witnesses to narrow down things that may be fraudulent. So one of the things that I look at when it comes to the Enoch calendar, 365.25 days by the Gregorian and 364 days, or 365.25 in one of the records of Enoch. Well, I have all of the other books saying 364, other records besides First Enoch. It meets the criteria for the 2-3 records. But that's how I look at it. If there's stories that are unmeshing, whether in the Bible or elsewhere, should I fear? No. I will be able to determine, because the Bible has left clues of how to identify things that are potentially fraudulent and things that need to be taken heed of by having 2 or 3 witnesses of the same situation. Question 8. Does the Bible affirm that changes would occur? Part 3. So now we're shifting gears and we're going more so to look at what Satan did and also just oppose his action against the Messiah. When we look at Revelation chapter 12, verse 15 through 16, we see that it says that the dragon will cast out of his mouth a flood. So people can look at this and be dumbfounded, like, a flood? Is he sending water out of his mouth? Is he just overwhelming people by drowning them? And the answer would be yes. You see, we can get tied up with just looking at the water side of things, but a flood can be anything that overwhelms and pours out on somebody, that leaves them to drown or just be in a state of hopelessness, flapping around. And that's exactly what has happened, as Satan has pushed all these denominations, all the confusion, all the different doctrines that lead to death, all the death, all the lying that has been perpetrated throughout the centuries that pursues the children of Israel, and indeed all those who wish to honor and worship the power of the children of Israel. So indeed he has done that. Satan has been cast down and he pursues people with a flood. Just like the flood at the very beginning was meant to destroy, Satan looked at this and, okay, you did it against me and my own, I'm going to do this against yours now. No physical water, but a flood of words. If you look at John chapter 4, verse 14, you see the Messiah, him talking about being living water to a woman at a well. And so you see that one is given words in a way, in a manner that can be received and drunk in and provide life, while the other one is angry and just lashing out and doing whatever so that it destroys those who hear. Question 9. Does the Bible affirm that changes will occur? Part 4. Alright, so when we look at this, Malachi chapter 3, verse 16 through 18, we come to what we're talking about, the book of remembrance. And the interesting thing here is it talks about something being spared. Now, some people may look at this verse and think, okay, he's sparing the people. Okay, so sure, but through their records, their memory are remembered by what they have written, even what we have with the word of the Most High. He's preserving them, preserving who they were, their character, their strength of character, even with the Messiah. So this is no different. It's talking about a book of remembrance, something specifically called a book of remembrance, that there's nothing of this in the Bible itself, but here is mentioned as a leap-off point, if you will. Just like the book of Jasher, they're mentioned, but there's no records of them because they've been hidden by those who are in power. Now, the them in Malachi chapter 3, verse 16 through 18, the writing as I would associate with this, and hence the people who these writings were about, they're compared to jewels. And Jews, when you look at this and you actually precept it, what Jews mean is lips of knowledge. So Proverbs chapter 20, verse 15 tells you that lips of knowledge are precious jewels, point blank. Okay, and I definitely would think that Most High and what he has said is something that would be protected, something that would be spared. And finally, question 10. So what's the point being made up until now? The point is stay nimble, stay alert, stay learning, because the adversary has put up so many roadblocks that if we just give up and just determine, okay, this is all I'm looking at, then we will fall victim to the flood. But if we nourish ourselves, take of that well water and go through it with patience, the Most High will work everything out for our good, and we will prove that we really want Him when we come to full understanding of who He is. Alright, so for clarity's sake, let's go over the first two questions we had. So, about the Bible foretelling about tampering, yes, the Bible absolutely tells us about how it will be tampered with. Most High even has a hand in this by sealing it so that it preserves it from those who are wicked, so they are unable to get in until it's too late. And then you have the adding to the word, the whole idea of the precepts of men, the doctrines of men being added to fluff the word of the Most High and create deceitfulness where there was once clarity. And then there's the idea of minusing or taking away, saying things are non-canonical and that things will be taken away to that person as well. Just like if they add, things be added, plagues, curses, whatever, that are mentioned in Revelation. Finally, this tampering has been allowed to draw out the nobility within us. People ask why. Because if we're just given anything in any area of life, we're less appreciative of it. But if we have a hand in actually resting with it, actually digging deep, digging in, then we love what we find so much more. It truly then is a treasure, a pearl in the field. We're willing to sell everything to get that field so we can get that pearl and bring it close to our being. And it's no different with the Most High. He wants us to relate with Him on a personal level. And the only way to do that is if He hides Himself and gives us opportunity to seek Him while we may. Alright, so I want us to really discuss in the comment section the two questions that I have here. So, first question, have you ever read so-called extra-biblical writing? And if so, what? And second, how do you feel toward those who have purposely misled people into false doctrines? So just comment, leave your thoughts, your opinions, your feelings in the section below. And do remember that for others, your words, your lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. And that's a wrap. And cut.